So here we have Tomato Lorenzo going on Fox News, and what you're going to get here is a tutorial in right-wing propaganda. This is a masterclass in right-wing propaganda. See, the issue here is going to be with just the premise of the conversation, where you'll see the whole underlying assumption is like, well, obviously Democrats are pro-violent crime. You know, rape, murder, things of that nature. They look at that and they go, yay, right on. Or we shouldn't even arrest those people. This is going to be the whole framework of the conversation is built on that foundation. It's crazy. So let's take a look and then I'll come back and respond.
Tomi, Lahren, Tomi, look, the people of California going to that poor UCLA grad student who was murdered, they vote for leftists that create policies that allow things like this to happen. When are the people of California going to wake up and stop voting in these people?
Well, listen, Todd, every bad idea of at least the last 5 years has originated in either California or New York, and that's no coincidence. Those two states also provide a perfect example of what happens when you allow one-party Democrat rule, and it's a case study and a cautionary tale, and it's especially when you look at the lawlessness and the soft on crime, soft on criminals, soft on thug policies that are formed and fomented in both those states. You know, I lived in California for several years, and I saw this firsthand. I decided to leave the state when I realized that some of its residents seemed more startled by seeing a conservative like myself in the flesh than they were seeing an addict light up a pipe in a yogurt land. I also saw that firsthand. But as you said, Todd, if the people of California and New York want to make changes, they have to start with the way that they vote. Nothing is going to change until you decide to vote for either moderate Democrats who believe in law and order and protecting decent people, or you vote for Republicans that I know are certainly about law and order and protecting and preserving the rights of law-abiding Americans in their cities and their states. But they're going to have to make big changes. They also have an opportunity in both those states to be a case study of what happens when you change your vote and you make big changes to not only your politicians, but your felon-coddling policies. Something needs to change before it's too late.
These numbers, Tomi, are astounding. LA crime from 2019 to 2021, homicides up almost 54%, shooting victims up 54%. And I think we both know the area where this UCLA grad was murdered. It's a nice area. It's the Fairfax district. I used to live right around the corner. I always felt safe. I was there for four and a half years. Should anybody feel safe in a blue city going forward?
I think that this is also where you're going to start to see some big changes. It's one thing when this impacts the ghettos and the inner cities. It's another thing when it impacts nice areas. And that's sad to say, because that shouldn't be the case. Every American should be safe on their cities, in their cities and on their streets. But that's not the case in places like California. And I think the Democrats, and especially these activist DAs, need to be asked, what is your motivation for being soft on criminals and soft on crime? What is it? Why are you motivated to protect the lowest denominator of human being in your cities and your states? And why are you not protecting the law-abiding Americans that look to government for nothing else but protection? Democrats need to answer for that. They're going to have to answer for it in midterms. I wish it didn't take an election cycle to make big changes, but unfortunately, sometimes it does. We have a big opportunity to make big changes, and that comes in November.
Who looked at this instance of a murder and said, you know what? Let the guy go. Nobody did that. Nobody is pro-murder. No left DA sits back and goes, all right, boys, we're going to allow murder from now on. Does that sound good? All agreed? All agreed. Okay, good. Murder is now legal here. De facto legal murder here. Everybody wants to go after a murderer. Everybody does. Everybody does. But you see what they do? They just imply, well, obviously the Democrats are pro-murder because a murder happened in a Democratic state. So these soft-on-crime DAs are not doing their job. Anybody could pick an individual crime in a red state and then turn around and go, these Republicans are soft on crime because a murder happened. Vote in the Democrats, please. It's just a totally dishonest conversation. Now, what's the root of the problem here? The root of the problem here is very simple. You have extreme poverty and degradation that then leads people to commit crimes. Now, I'm not saying every crime is a result of poverty and degradation. I'm sure there are plenty of criminals who are pathological And so even if they are effectively well off, they commit the crimes. Look at a lot of the guys on Wall Street for that one, okay? But a lot of the crimes, particularly for the destitute, the people who are really not well off at all and can't survive, a lot of those crimes are because of extreme poverty and degradation. And a system that doesn't have a functioning social safety net to make sure that the bottom isn't so low that people turn to desperate measures which end up being incredibly unethical, immoral, and illegal for a reason. Okay, so just one example. Oxfam came out with a report. Billionaires during the pandemic gained $5 trillion in wealth. $5 trillion. As everybody else is losing ground at an alarming rate. That's going to lead to more social instability. Of course it is. Of course it is. When people, not only do people not have a fraction of the pie, they don't even have crumbs. Yes, that's going to lead to a spike in crimes. There are macroeconomic factors and sociological factors which lead to an increase in crime. Now, in this particular instance, with a murderer, perhaps this guy was, not only has a history of violence, but maybe paranoid schizophrenic or something like that. So I'm not making a claim about this particular murder because I don't have any of the details about this particular murder and the guy's mental state, so on and so forth. But this notion of just connecting Democrats to being pro-crime or allowing crime is absurd. The argument I've always made on this show is, yeah, I am a law and order guy. I'm tough on crimes, but only crimes that I think should actually be crimes. So this murderer, I'd throw the book at him. I'm sure they are going to throw the book at him. But yeah, when it comes to stuff like the drug war, legalize all the drugs, free all the nonviolent drug offenders. That's called personal freedom. Put in your body whatever you want to put in your body as long as you're not hurting anybody else. And guess what? Joe Biden is pro-drug war. And it's not like, well, we waged the drug war, and so now we succeeded and defeated crime. No, because we still have the drug war going on, and we have a crime wave. Maybe that's not the issue. So only be tough on crimes that should actually be crimes. Here's one, for example. War crimes, like the Iraq War, which almost all of our politicians voted for. There's something that's absolutely criminal. I'd be tough on that crime. I'd be tough on the crime of the U.S. sanctioning medicine going into Iran. Now, I believe in international law and order, too. Apparently, Tomi, Lahren, and many on the right don't. They want us to be able to do whatever we want, violate whatever law we want, and it's okay because we mean well. No, I don't agree with that. But listen, when it comes to murder, rape, assault, crimes that should actually be crimes, I'm fine with throwing the book at people. I'm fine with being tough on crime. But when it comes to non-violent offenses, when it comes to drug crimes, no, free those people. But really, if you want to reduce the crime rate, what you need to do is address the root problems here. If we implemented a social democratic program and people had healthcare, people had college, homeless people had a roof over their head, and we had, on top of just healthcare for everybody, you also have mental health care for everybody, so people can get their medicine, get counseling and things of that nature. If we set up a system where the bare necessities of life are met, then of course crime is going to drop incredibly fast. Of course it is, because there's not as many desperate people. And it's not like there's nowhere to turn. And now a lot of people feel like there's nowhere to turn. Again, this conversation is slightly different from a cold-blooded murderer. You have to look at the cases. You have to look at this specific case to get the information on that to determine what exactly happened. But broad macroeconomic and sociological trends can absolutely, if you address them properly, well, then you'll have a reduction in crime. But they're not interested in that conversation. They're interested in cheap political partisan gain. And that's what this is. That's exactly what this is. This is just blame the Democrats because there was crime and so vote in Republicans. Well, Republicans are not going to address the social conditions and the economic conditions. So they're not going to get to the root of what causes the crime. And they're also going to be unfairly and in an anti-freedom authoritarian way lock up the nonviolent drug offenders. So forgive me if this pitch is not persuasive. It's not persuasive to anybody with an IQ above 80. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.